Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Kurt, for an excellent presentation. I've been busy in the background here. I wanted to add a couple. We'll follow up on some of what you've talked about here this morning, and especially this time of the year. But a couple of climate considerations in this as well. But let's start quickly here with a review of the previous week. And for parts of the state, depending on where you were, mean temperatures range from really close to normal, maybe even a degree or two above in the northern part of the state, to cooler than normal in the south. And this has been a flip-flop from what we've seen much of the late winter and spring here. So a little bit of a change of pattern. Precip was variable, but northern parts of the state got the heaviest precipitation on the right-hand side here during the last week. Many areas, 1/2 to 1 inch totals. Some even did better than that. But there were locations in the lower peninsula, especially in the Saginaw Valley area here, where there was less than 1/4 of an inch. And up in the upper right-hand corner here, this is interesting because this is right now the relative terms, the driest area of the state, and it's still in the drought monitor still has it classified as much as a D2 long-term, and it is a long-term dry situation, long-term severe drought, which is a little unusual for us at this time of the year, but it's an area that's been missed repeatedly and missed repeatedly when other areas of the state picked up heavy precipitation. And so it's just one of those sometimes we see that happen. Smaller areas or sub-regional areas have one trend or the other, but it's unusual to see it go on for a long time. But that's the current situation. But it was, for most of the state, a cooler and a little bit drier than normal week here, certainly than we've had with the very active weather pattern in late March and April. Our degree day totals here, looking for the season, and I put this up here. Typically, we don't start to look at these yet, but this is we're aiming now at our overwintering crops, and so our wheat crop, our forage crops that are coming out of dormancy or come out of dormancy and begin development, and some of the wheat you just saw that Kurt showed in there's been early development, especially in the southern part of the state, and that's the point here. If we look at our degree day accumulations on the left-hand side here, numbers ranging from about 115 in the far south to single digits in the north, and that's I think the point of this on the right-hand side here. This is though the seasonal accumulation thus far relative to normal. And what we have is an unusual situation in Michigan this year, and that is the southern part of the state with some of those big weather systems that moved through over the last several weeks. The warm air made it into Michigan, but not to the northern part of the state. And as a result of that, that's where those degree day accumulations came from. And so we are advanced relative to normal, where we have a surplus of degree days in especially the southern half of lower Michigan, but we have a deficit in the north. And it's unusual because typically even across the state, usually we're on the same side of the equation. We have a surplus or we have a deficit at this time of the year. But this year has been different, and so a wide range of conditions across the state, ranging from quite a bit of early development so far in the far south to virtually nothing. And we still have snow on the ground in portions of upper Michigan. It's been very, very, very different. And that we're looking for some analogs for that situation in the past here. Hopefully we'll have some of those next week. I wanted to also mention there's some climatology here, but March, with a very, very that active storm track that we had, including unfortunately some severe weather, but lots of precipitation. March of 2025 turned out to be now the second wettest March on record back to 1895. That's not easy to do, but you can see here for the state as a whole, averaged observed total just a little bit less than 4 inches, almost double the normal. The departure here again, 1.88 inches. So, and this also reflects a trend towards Michigan, as many of you know and appreciate. It's getting wetter, and it's across almost all seasons. But here's another example of that, with again almost a new record set for the month of March. And following back up on what Kurt talked about, I wanted to throw this in here because as we have more precipitation, there's some really interesting nuance in this, and it directly ties in with the excellent information that Kurt had regarding those dry periods. And Kurt identified, well, I'll get to the next slide, which ties right back with what Kurt showed you. But while it's getting wetter in Michigan, that I just talked about, the incidence of wide scale or widespread regional drought, the 2012s, the 1988s, the huge droughts that affect large areas of the region, that is decreasing. That's a good thing. And so we still have those events, but they're less frequent, they're less severe than they have been in the past. And that's because we have now 10 to 15% more annual precipitation on average than we did just 50 years ago. So that's a good thing. But here's the link back. The so-called incidence of flash droughts. And flash droughts are are drought conditions, but typically on a much smaller spatial scale and a much reduced time scale. So we're talking about the 4 to 8 week dry windows, exactly what Kurt talked about in his presentation. And the issue is in the Midwest and in Michigan, those are increasing. So while we have a decrease in the number of the big regional droughts, like 2012, fortunately, those small scale droughts, and Kurt identified the last two we've had in Michigan. One was the spring, early summer of 2023, and the other was last fall, where we have window, and it was an area that wasn't that large, but it was still significant. And of course, these flash droughts can be very important. The timing is critical. If we would have had the drought of 2023, that early on drought, if it would have occurred 6 to 8 weeks later, it would have been a disaster. But as it was, we had some problems. It caused herbicide activation, a number of other issues in that year, and some emergence issues and stand establishment. But we had fairly decent performance. But if that would have occurred, the point is 6 to 8 weeks later in the middle of the growing season, it would have been horribly timed for our annual crops. And again, the lesson here, the climate is that unfortunately those events are increasing. So the variability of our precip and the rates of precip appears to be increasing with time, and that's something certainly to be aware of or concerned about. So I wanted to throw that in, and thanks, Kurt, for the segue or leading into that. It was excellent information. Okay, well, let's look at where we are because I think everybody obviously is wanting to get going and get the planners rolling. We're moving into a more active weather pattern here. That is the bottom line. And the direction ultimately longer term here is warmer and wetter. And there may be opportunities here. There probably will be, but it's going to be a bit of a challenge because we're going to see more frequent chances for precipitation over the upcoming 1 to 2 weeks, but certainly warmer conditions. This morning we have high pressure over the state. Actually, another frost freeze day over many areas, upper 20s, low 30s for temperatures. And that high pressure responsible for that is going to move off to the east. And then the next weather system, which is just off to our west here, out in the central and northern Great Plains, that's going to move through Michigan here over the next 48 hours and provide at least two major chances for precipitation. And then even a follow-up on that after here late in the weekend and into early next week. So I'll show you that. Here by tonight, you can see that system beginning to move into Michigan. So we'll see today actually significantly noticeably warmer today. High temperatures from the upper 50s north to some mid 60s in the south, noticeably warmer than what we've been, back to above normal. But there will be an increase of clouds during the day as that weather system approaches. And then the threat of some showers and thunderstorms, especially northwestern parts of the state here this evening. But for most of the state, we're talking about the best chances in this first round of precip in the early AM hours through daybreak tomorrow. Greatest chances for rain with this first wave will be across the north. And we're generally looking at quarter to half inch totals, less as you go south, and actually less coverage as you go into the southern lower peninsula as well. And then by tomorrow, most of the precipitation, and at least in the southern half of the state, will come to an end. There'll still be a bit of a threat in the north. Here's the weather map for tomorrow morning. You can see that, again, that system is really getting organized. There will be a chance for scattered showers and thunderstorms tomorrow, but it will not be widespread in most areas. The other issue is for at least the southern two-thirds, let's say, of lower Michigan. We'll have a warm front go through here overnight and tomorrow. That's what's going to cause the first wave of precip. But there's very warm and actually Gulf origin air, moisture, humidity, warm temperatures. So we'll see temperatures tomorrow, Friday, in the south, probably in some cases even pushing 80, but certainly mid 70s for high. Tomorrow will be clearly the warmest day of the upcoming week. It'll be cooler than that to the north of the warm front, up and just like what we saw here for the last several weeks in the state. Cooler in the north, probably only 50s and 60s for highs in the north, but again, very, very warm in the south. And in some areas, this may provide some opportunities here over the next 48 hours, depending on how much rain you pick up tonight. But the problem with the warm air at this time of the year in the spring is that we set the stage. There's going to be a cold front move through with the system overnight, Friday into Saturday, and that's going to set off the second major round of showers and thunderstorms. Some of those could be severe, especially late Friday evening into early Saturday. You can see the map here. This outlines our severe weather chances, the slight risk for severe weather across much of lower Michigan, mostly again Friday evening and into early Saturday morning. A primary threat with this probably be high winds, although we could see hail, even a tornado is possible. But I think again the primary threat with this would be high winds. And late in the night, most areas will see a quarter to half an inch with this particular weather system as well. By Saturday morning, the cold front that causes those thunderstorms moves off to our south and east, and then just it stalls out just to the south of the state here in Indiana and Ohio. And so, northern parts of the state will see cooler and drier on Saturday, and then on Easter Sunday, still a fair amount of clouds. We'll see a lingering chance for rainfall, though, across the south, and it won't be widespread, at least not on Saturday. But what happens then after this? The Another wave of low pressure rides up on that frontal boundary and brings a likelihood of showers and thunderstorms once again late on Easter Sunday and continuing into Monday. And that one that's another quarter to half an inch with that as well. So all in all, if we look at the gauge here for what's forecast estimated here for the upcoming week, a fairly wet week once again for most of the state, with a half to 1 inch, some 1 inch plus totals across the northern part of the state, less as you go south, but generally a fairly wet week and an active week with many chances for precipitation. So, in terms of the field work, it's possible, but there's going to be some luck involved because some areas this will not be uniform coverage of rainfall. In some areas, while they get significant rain, others will have much less. And with those warm temperatures, our soil temperatures now, you've probably been checking yours as well, but in most areas, 30s at night and maybe some low 50s or upper 40s during the day at 2 inches. That's about where we are right now. So we're still warming back up, but with this warm weather coming, we will see a jump in our soil temperatures as well over the next couple days. Beyond that, I mentioned a warm and wet sort of a direction or theme in the forecast, and that is true for both the 6 to 10 day and the 8 to 14 day time frames. And on the left-hand side here, if you look at the jet stream, it's expected to be more west to east or zonal, but we do have a little bit of troughing out here over the west with somewhat of a southwesterly trajectory over the upper Midwest and Michigan, and there's a strong likelihood, though, that will lead to an increase in our temperatures back up to above normal levels. You can see that in the upper right. And again, the case really through the end of April. It also means a fairly active storm track, like what we're expecting to see here over the next several days, with greater than normal chance of precipitation with time. So warmer and wetter than normal, it looks like is where we're headed for the end of the month and probably into early May. And summarizing here again, active, dynamic. That's what we should be thinking about here, I think, for the weather. But there probably will be some opportunities in there, especially in the next couple days with the temperatures where they are. So be ready to go if opportunities do present themselves. But it is going to be certainly a taste of late spring, almost early summer by tomorrow, and then we move into again a sort of an unsettled pattern here over the upcoming Easter holiday. And with that, I'll wrap up and introduce next week's speaker for the 24th, and that's Dr. Erin Hill with us from the Plant and Pest Diagnostic Lab, and she's going to be talking about herbicide resistance with a focus on water hemp. And again, that's next week, a week from today on Thursday's virtual breakfast. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Phil. Thanks.